Hello, you. A lot's happened. No surprises there, right? I wouldn't be talking to you unless there was something worth talking about. Or maybe I missed you. Is it so wrong to talk about nothing? No stories, no pain, no drama. If only. But no. I'm resting in bed again, and I'm not feeling great. I'm sensing a pattern. There are too many people here. In the hotel. I'm in a hotel, by the way. Ariadne and I... We'll get there. Anyway, it's too much. Too many lives, too many stories. It's overwhelming. People all around me, but somehow I feel more isolated than ever. I can't get near them. Shouldn't get near them. I want to. Really want to. That's the problem. Their stories, they taste so good. I'm getting worse. Every day, every time I use the words, I'm drifting. How much longer until I'm not me? Just them. I don't want to be alone, but I don't think you're enough anymore. I need someone real, someone physical to keep my head on straight, to remind me of myself. But then there's all the Ariadne stuff, and I'm just... She's resting. We haven't talked. Neither of us has had the energy after everything. Or we want to ignore the truth for as long as possible. She got us rooms at the hotel and helped me into bed. Don't really remember the trip. She's not in much better shape, but I wasn't cognizant. I can't tell if I'm actually recording this or still asleep, but what else is new? What do I say to her? I can feel it in her. I've felt it since I first met her, but I didn't know what it was then. The letter finally makes sense. I knew then reading it that she was a part of it, but I didn't know how. I didn't care, or I didn't want to accept it. I'm sorry that I didn't tell you, that I knew. You don't deserve that. But I didn't want to discuss it, not even with you. I didn't want it to be real. Ignore the letter, ignore the feeling, ignore her. There was enough happening, so it was easy. But now, no more hiding. She's one of them. A family member. And she knows. I can hear it in her thoughts. Even now, I can hear her in the room across the hall. I can see it in her eyes. She's scared. Scared of herself, me, them. She was never scared like this before. They've opened her up, allowed the emotions to flow in. All those lives, all the stories. Can I trust her? Is the fear real, or is it just a trick to trust her and lower my guard? I can't even trust myself right now, and she's hiding something from me, from her, not just being a family member. There's something there. Deep in her mind, she's not letting surface. She can't look me in the eye. She wants to say sorry, but for what? I need to talk to her, hear her story, her lies. Maybe she'll tell the truth. Maybe I'll learn what she's hiding. Let her guard down. Let me see. I shouldn't have saved her. It would have been easier to just leave her, but I need someone real. She's the only friend I have. She's not like them. And maybe she can keep me here, and me. But I need to hear it from her. I need her story. I should turn the TV on or something. This room is too quiet. I can hear the murmurings through the walls, people, their voices, their minds, calling out to one another. How did the words keep this all straight? The pulling from himself and them. Focus. Welcome to Heartland Supernatural. Yeah. Today is a special episode with a special guest. Me. Welcome to the Beating Heartland, created by Denver Baughman. Episode 30. The Doctor. I lie on the floor of the cabin after hearing Ariadne calling for me. She was in danger. It almost didn't sound like her. It's too much emotion. I'd never heard her sound like that. The terror, the hopelessness. She was always stoic, rational, a support through the chaos, making even the old memories safer, easier. But now, she was scared. I had to find her. It was another thing to latch onto. It was another rock in the stream, like my dad, to keep me busy, keep me driven. The cabin came back into focus. The burnt wood, the charred remains of the werewolf, the lockbox with my dad's journal and letters. I pocketed those, including the unopened letter to my mom, and stood. I could still feel the pulling of the words. I focused on the memory of her cry for help, and the pulling followed. Wherever she was, there were parts of the words linked to the location, and by proxy, her. I felt a tendril, a line, though not one that would have made sense to anyone I described it to, leading to her. A tree at the edge of the glade beckoned, its roots still writhing with inky energy. This place was rotting with power. I wonder how long it's going to take for it to become normal again, now that the books are burned. Even then, I could feel the power diminishing as I stood there. And someday, it would be a normal glade again. I walked to the tree. I must have, because a few blinks later, I was standing in front of it, the old bark twisting in waves and spikes. I placed my hand on the bark, which moved like water around my fingers. My hand, without any effort, submerged into the depths of the trunk. Time passed. I don't know how much, and I wasn't in the glade anymore. It was a tunnel, though to call it a tunnel doesn't explain it accurately. It was mostly stone, but there were strands of other materials throughout, like paint that hadn't been mixed all the way. Some of the strands were foreign, while others felt oddly familiar. Bricks from a chimney, carpet of a bedroom used for decades, a painting created with love stretched beyond recognition. Everything was mixed in impossible ways, the words combining locations, objects, and memories without understanding or reason. The tunnel twisted as I followed it, often branching into multiple paths and shifting behind me as I lost sight of it, not wanting to remain a single thing. It's evident to me now, as the words inhabit me, that they are more powerful than the rest of the family. The first to have been created, given too much, more realized, unbound. So what about the father? They created the words, the family. What are the goals of a being like that? And how do you stop them? Can you? I wasn't alone in the tunnels. As I followed the pulling that came from inside and around me, guiding me towards my goal of finding Ariadne, I could feel another presence. It slithered, stomped, trudged, and slinked along, its body constantly shifting, its very being intricately linked with the tunnels. It groaned in pain, the body unable to keep up with the shifting easily. I felt its senses turn in my direction. It smelled me. I could feel its excitement as it tromped towards me with startling speed. Food, energy. Its growls came from multiple directions, the beast's presence simultaneously in numerous sections of the tunnel. In response, I turned, willed the words to send me away, and the tunnels shifted. The noises of the creature disappeared, lost within the labyrinth. I was alone again. As alone as I can ever be. Somnoom was slinking somewhere in the shadows, and I was talking to you, thinking about what to say to you next. In front of me was a rusty metal door with a large wheel handle. It seemed to be from some old ship, the metal thick with a salty smell. I could almost feel Ariadne's heartbeat on the other side. Grabbing the wheel, my muscles strained as the rust held it fast. After a few moments of effort, the wheel turned with a snap and the door opened with a low squeal. I was in a parking lot. There was no tunnel or door behind me. They had disappeared into the shifting growth hidden in the ground. Not a bad way to travel if you have a string to follow. The parking lot was dotted with cars. Many of them were covered in a fine layer of snow. They'd been there for a while. The far end of the parking lot was obscured in darkness. Most of the lights weren't working. Looming over the lot was the hospital. Most of the lights in the building were also off, leaving the few that were on to look like eyes peering into the darkness. Everything about the place said, "Don't come in." So, naturally, I walked towards the front door. Okay. Yep. Okay. Give me a minute.
Would you believe me?
Yes, I don't... Tell me. Is all of this just a lie?
You could have let me die.
No, they didn't... They didn't want to kill you. They wanted you back with them. Stop lying. I can see it up there.
I'm sorry. It's not an easy habit to break. You knew. You could have left me.
I wanted to hear your story. Know what happened. Piece together. There's that feeling of yours again.
Sorry, I'm not trying to.
No, I know. I wasn't buying myself either.
Lying too?
Habits, right? You were hurting. That's why I came. You were hurting.
Thank you.
Of course.
What now?
I don't know. I haven't felt a new direction yet. We hold on to us. Don't let us slip away in between the cracks.
Why are you slipping away?
That's a loaded question.
I'm getting better at communication.
Yeah, you almost sound like a person. I'm more like you than you know. You're not the only one dealing with new toys inside.
Toys?
I did something. Something I can't go back from. My brain still doesn't know if I can trust you.
You still owe me a therapy session. You never showed up.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry about that. Was that still us?
I have no idea.
Do you remember when I first suggested the letters? We'd barely talked at that point. I mean, I'd done plenty of talking, but one-on-one. You know, sure, you said what you needed to say, but I guess we both know that you didn't need to talk. You'd get the information out of me anyway, even if you didn't know how. The first time we talked about you was when I arrived early for a session by accident. You were listening to heavy metal, which did not strike me as something you'd be into. I don't even remember which band it was. You were embarrassed, you apologized, and then I apologized for barging in. Those apologies went on for a bit, in good old Midwestern fashion. I asked about the band. Yeah, you lit up. I'd never seen emotion like that on you before. You became a real person to me. And not that you weren't before, I mean, you weren't just a therapist. You recommended some bands. I'm not a metalhead, so it took some getting used to, but I wanted to get used to it. I wanted that connection with you. We never talked about me that session. It was all you. At some point you started talking about the books you were reading, and I was, again, surprised. There was a lot of fantasy. You said the emotions made more sense. After that, you got embarrassed. You recommended I find a new therapist. I think I laughed, which embarrassed you even more. I thought you were joking, which you weren't, but I was stubborn. I swore that we would keep the sessions professional from here on out. And then I recommended the letters. Could be a window to each other. A way to talk freely. You liked it. You write a lot better than you talk. I don't know if it's because you had time to think before writing something down, but your letters were fantastic. I reread them a lot. Didn't want to forget, like everything else. I felt bad about mine. They were stupid. I trusted that person. Is she still you?
The person in those letters, I liked the me that revealed itself when I wrote them. That person is still here. Confused, lost in the memories, the new feelings, the pain, the emotions, the identities. But she's still in control. For now.
You're afraid?
She was simpler, easier.
Is there anything else you remember from the hospital?
I don't.
There was something there. It flashed for a moment. What was that?
It's repressed and blurry. I don't...
That's okay. It's okay. The shapeshifter. It took your form. You passed out. What happened? There it is.
I awoke in a room. There weren't any windows or doors. There wasn't anything. Just stone and a single dim light. Bleary-eyed, I looked around. The walls seemed to be breathing, pushing in and out with a subtle shifting. I tried to stand, and it felt like my feet were dragging through sand. I had impressions of memories, but they were happening at that moment. Someone else was living my life, looking with my eyes, talking with my mouth. The memory of the shapeshifter resurfaced. They were connected to me, and somehow I was able to peer through the connection and see what they were doing. The doctor was with them, and they were talking. It was talking with my voice, my personality, like it had had it all along. I couldn't make out the words. The connection was muddied, but they were smiling. I could feel the emotion. It was me, but more. An almost more normal version of me. They knew you were coming, and they had plans. It's as if they wanted to toy with you. A cat chasing a mouse, giving the mouse hope. There was a mass of bodies in front of them. The pile of skin and limbs and muscle undulating with a horrible slurp. The bodies began to extricate themselves from the mass, reforming into normal-looking people. Then I fell to the ground. The floor had become too loose, shifting under my weight. The stones shifted around my body like quicksand, and I submerged into the floor as my consciousness faded to black.
I walked into the hospital, and the smell assaulted my nose. Death and flowers. There wasn't anyone at the reception desk, and the lights were dim, leaving the corners in shadow. If it hadn't been for the wailing, you'd have thought the hospital was empty. Echoing through the long, dark corridors, I could hear patients calling for help, moaning and screaming in pain. The noise seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, filling the halls with despair. I followed through endless corridors, Most of the doors locked, a few opened to useless closets or empty offices. It was all reminiscent of the tunnels. The path didn't make sense. Hallways didn't lead where they were supposed to. Open doors didn't contain the rooms that they should have. Night had fallen, and the veil had lifted. It was still different from the tunnels. It was steadier in its construction. If you were standing still, everything would seem normal. But also, the layout was more chaotic, made less sense. A shifting, a butchering of the words, controlled by someone else. Then I saw Ben. He walked around the corner at the end of a long hallway, his steps stiff and driven. He was the first person I saw in that hospital. A ghost brought to life, flesh and bone. He looked the same as he had on that road trip in 2019. Even his shirt was the same. His hair disheveled and bags under his eyes. There was no denying that it was him. He stopped and stared at me, his face blank of all emotion. I don't know if he recognized me or if there was even a brain capable of remembering anything. There had been no blood when the creature had killed him, or I thought had killed him. What at the time had felt completely foreign and unknowable now made sense. A puppet, stuffed, controlled, turned off, allowed to live a normal life until he was needed. We stared at each other. It was almost a pleasure to see a familiar face, a relief. I'd expected to see Ariadne or Felix, to see someone I knew who looked completely normal. That feeling was quickly replaced with horror. Several more puppets rounded the corner and stopped when they saw me. They stared, empty-eyed and breathless, merely following orders from their puppeteer. The hall was silent. There were no screams, no wails. The building was holding its breath. They ran at me. Their speed was swift and robotic. You can't grow tired when you don't need to breathe or think. Their unblinking eyes fixed on me, resolute. I dove into what I thought was an abandoned room, shut the door and locked it. They beat on it and on the window that looked out to the hallway. I didn't know how long the reinforced glass would hold up. Ben's voice, muffled through the door, said, "It's been so long. Let's chat." I stepped away from the door. The thing that was and wasn't Ben kept thundering on the wood. I heard crying behind me and turned to see two cribs, gently rocking as if an unseen hand had just been attempting to lull the occupants to sleep. Inside the cribs, unsurprisingly, were two babies. The room was familiar, the type of space most of us spend our early years in. A plastered innocence of pale colors and simple shapes. Why this room? Why bring me here? I asked inside. I could have thrown myself into several rooms. My body had specifically chosen this one. The only answer was to look closer. Both infants wore the same outfit, and as many newborns do, both looked very ugly. Only one was crying. The banging was probably too much for its ears, but the other just lay in its crib, content, staring at me with rapt attention. The eyes were beautiful, blue, and I felt a connection, a sense of belonging, oneness. The window shattered, and the limp body of a puppet flopped into the room. The second baby's cries increased. I looked for a way to escape. There was a window, not the one that led to the hallway, but one that looked out into the darkness. I grabbed a heftier book from a shelf and smashed it into the window, which shattered with little effort. It wasn't reinforced for some reason. As the puppet regained its footing and reached for me, I launched myself through the window. I did not land outside. Because, of course, I didn't. That would have made sense. I was in another room. Darker, dingier, older. The window was gone, replaced by an old wooden door behind me. Beside me, a workshop table was littered with surgical equipment. some brand new, others rusty and twisted, and some devices that had never been intended to be used on people. In front of me was Felix. Felix. He wasn't in one piece. It's like his body was on anatomical display, a piece of art to teach medical students. His limbs were stretched, his arms cut at the shoulders and pulled out to reveal muscle and bone underneath. The muscle held onto the flesh, keeping it from snapping off. His head was severed, except for the spinal cord. It was held aloft. The eyes closed, and the face looked normal, almost peaceful. The stomach and chest were split open, skin folded out like a flipped open book. You could see the ribs, the organs inside. Everything was on display, within arm's reach, able to be worked on to perfect. His heart was still beating, still alive. I stepped toward him, my legs shaking, the pulling inside wanting me to turn around. This wasn't Ariadne, this wasn't what I was here for. But it was wrong. I was here for both. I reached my hand toward Felix's heart. It beat with a steady, healthy rhythm. It thought the body was okay. I touched it, and the skin started to knit back together. It was slow. Every pop, every squelch rang in my ears. The skin of the chest furled in, the arms and legs reattached, and the head, saved for last, resealed to the neck. When it was done, Felix could have been asleep. There wasn't any scarring, no indication of surgery. His eyes opened with a snap. They were blank, glassy. He started to breathe. It was ragged, hoarse, but it was life. "Felix," I said quietly. I'm here." His eyes moved, looked at me. The pupils grew. The mouth moved into the slightest smile. Recognition. He knew who I was. It wasn't like Ben. There was something still inside. It didn't last. His eyes went back to the glassy appearance. His hand reached out toward me with frightening speed and gripped my throat. He stood, his body not seeming to care about the state it had just been in. The same look of determination in his eyes as the rest of the puppets. He shoved me against the wall, my feet dangling. The fingers closed tightly around my throat. I grabbed onto the arm and tried to pry myself free, kicking at his legs, scratching his arms, reaching toward his face. Nothing worked. I felt a power flow through Felix, and his body shivered. A smile formed on his lips, but it wasn't his. "He's mine now," the voice that wasn't his said. The puppet let me go, and I gasped on the floor. "Don't feel too bad. He'll never hurt again. Never starve again. Never live," I wheezed. "You'll live a life of perfect obedience." Felix shivered, and life came back to his eyes for a moment. It was quick, only long enough for me to catch. But a perturbed frown quickly replaced it. "How is he?" In that moment of confusion, I stood, reached towards the door and rushed out of the room, slamming the door shut behind me and running down the new hallway.
I lived every life over again. I would wake up in the sealed room, feel that thing living my life, only to collapse into the sinking floor and experience, in vivid detail, a life I used to live, over and over again. It felt like years. Room, dark, dreams, awake, an endless cycle of me. And after each pass, the thing was more like me, more like them too, the past me's. They enjoyed it, like a buffet of lives to experience all at once. It never tasted something like this before. And then I was awake for longer than usual. I glanced around the room. It hadn't changed, but something had. So I focused on them, the thing wearing my skin. It saw you. You were crying. Something was on the ground in front of you, and everything went black again.
The hospital wanted me to be found. Wanted me to be lost. I'd turn a corner, and another group of puppets would be waiting for me. I'd run through a door and be spat out into a hallway I'd already been in. It was a nightmare, a never-ending maze that I couldn't control and didn't make sense. The power inside of me was growing frantic. It pointed in the direction it thought Ariadne was, only for the hallways to shift again, guiding in a completely different direction. I ran into a patient's room. It was small, no frills. There was a bed, barely large enough to hold a person, a single rotting plant perched on the windowsill, and that was it. I turned to leave, and the blanket on the bed flung open. A stinking mass of flesh, muscles, and limbs tumbled out of the bed, scrambling to stand and grabbed me by the wrist. The other arm scratched at my chest frantically. The body shivered and convulsed. The hand grabbed me by the back of the head and pulled me closer. There was barely a face in the writhing skin. Coming out of a hole that must have been the mouth, warm brown liquid, smelling of medicine, dribbled out. It made a guttural noise and gripped me tighter. Reacting, almost a defense mechanism, the black ooze of the words rocketed from my mouth and into the mouth of the thing. It let go, coughing and shaking, and I watched as the blackness seeped into its veins and consumed it. They were protecting me, still. And then I blinked, and the thing was no longer a mass of skin and smell, but a young woman. Her skin was pale, an IV attached to her arm, her hair wet and pasted to her face from fever. She convulsed, the words finishing their work. I killed her. The black oozed back into me, and her cold, lifeless body lay crumpled on the floor. I collapsed next to her. My body shook. My vision became blurry, and I cried. The story of her life began to take hold. The fever, the hardship. I pushed it back. I couldn't lose myself. Not here. Not now. What have I done? I said. I didn't mean to. No. I shook. My body was at war with the memories. Why had I done that? Why did the words? Why had I seen that? What's happening to me? She was sick. Her mother had stopped visiting. She blamed herself. No! We're not doing that. The hand reached out and touched my shoulder with a reassuring grip. I knew that hand. Still crying, I looked up and saw Ariadne staring back with a gentle smile. It's okay. It will be okay. I flung myself around her in a hug, my tears seeping into her shirt, and she gently hugged me back. And I knew it wasn't her.
There was a look, an understanding. When you saw them, looked into their eyes, you knew it wasn't me. You still hugged her, looking for a comforting presence, some sense of familiarity, and you didn't want them to know that you knew. Your world was shattering. What you thought was real wasn't. How much else wasn't real? Denver?
What?
You're just staring at me. It's a little... What are you seeing?
I wasn't. You... What was the last thing I said?
You mentioned the letters and then went quiet. Are you okay?
How long ago was that?
A few seconds ago. You should lie down.
I'm fine. I'm sorry. I should... Crap. Did you hear that? I thought I was talking to her. Of course I wasn't talking to her, but it felt so real looking into her. Her telling the story. It felt like Andrew, like the woman, like the corpse in the road, consuming... How could you hear that? How did you hear that? The Beating Heartland was written by Denver Baughman. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review us on whatever streaming platform you are using. Follow us online at The Beating Heartland. Thank you for listening.